Okay. Now, lastly, we'll talk about animals. So far we've been talking about primarily unicellular organisms, or if they were multicellular, they lack true tissues and they lack true organs. Now, this course, we are going to focus on animals. Now, animals are what? Multicellular. They have true tissues and they have true organs, and they are all chemoheterotrophic. Now, we'll briefly talk about the helminths, or basically parasitic worms. Now, most parasitic worms are macroscopic, meaning you can see them with your eye. But we care about them in microbiology because how we detect whether or not you have an infection caused by a parasitic worm is basically either the eggs that they make in your stool or the larvae that come out of your stool. So that's what we care about. That's how we diagnose the disease. Usually the worms stay in your intestine. Usually they don't come out. Sometimes they do. It's scary if they do. Usually they stay in your intestine. The only way we know you're sick with the worm is basically look at your stool sample, look for eggs, or look for the larvae, the immature forms. Now, these arthropod vectors, these are animals that carry pathogens. We care about them a whole lot. Now, arthropod vectors, it basically means jointed leg, literally. So arthropod literally means jointed leg. So think about your arachnids and think about your insects. They have jointed legs. And we care about some of them because they can carry diseases. Now, mechanical vectors, they simply carry the disease. So for example, you don't like when flies land on your food because you know flies carry diseases. In other words, flies carry bacteria. Where do they hang out? They hang out on feces, for example, dead organisms, and then they come land on your hamburger. And they're carrying whatever they got from the feces or that dead animal onto your hamburger. In that case, that fly would be a mechanical vector because it's simply carrying pathogens. It's just carrying them around. Now, this is really different from a biological vector. Now, in the biological vector, the pathogen is actually living in that animal. It's living in the insect. It's living in the arachnid. In other words, that vector is a host for that pathogen. So think of malaria, okay? Think of the Anopheles mosquito. That Anopheles mosquito would be the biological vector for Plasmodium because Plasmodium actually lives within that mosquito. So that's a biological vector. Now, disease vectors belong in two classes of arthropod. Remember, arthropod is basically jointed leg. You have your arachnids and your insects. So I want you to know the difference between arachnids and insects because they all have jointed legs, but there are some differences. Yes, Mark? Oh, no, you okay. No worries, no worries. Okay, we'll deal with the arachnids first. Now, adult arachnids have 4 pairs of jointed legs. So you know about spiders, for example. You know that spiders have 8 legs. So all arachnids have 8 legs. They have 4 pairs of jointed legs. Now, interestingly, even though we know that spiders are arachnids, spiders do not carry diseases. I mean, they can make you sick. In other words, they don't carry pathogens. In other words, if a spider bites you, they inject their venom into you, just like a snake would, and that's how you get sick. But spiders don't carry diseases. It's just their venom that makes you sick. So we don't care about spiders in this regard. We do care about ticks and mites. Now, ticks and mites are arachnids because they have 8 legs. Now, ticks are the most important arachnid vector because they carry most of the diseases if you're talking about arachnids. Now, the hard ticks are the ones we really care about. Now, hard ticks are called hard because their dorsal side of them is hard. So that's why they're called hard ticks. Hard ticks basically hang out on grasses, and if you're taking a walk in the woods, they're on the grass, and they literally wait for you to walk by. They sense that. They sense your heat. When they sense that heat, either from an animal or from you, they jump from the grass onto your body. Literally, jump onto you. And they latch onto you. And if you don't find them and get them off, okay, they'll start sucking your blood. And when they suck your blood, they fill up with blood. They get really, really big. Now, the reason why we care about ticks, for example, ticks can carry diseases like Lyme disease. I talked about Lyme disease back in the previous chapter. Lyme disease is caused by Borrelia burgdorferi, so you should know that. And ticks are the biological vectors for that bacterium. Got it? Causes Lyme disease. You know you got Lyme disease because you'll have that target or bullseye rash on your body. So wherever the tick bit you, eventually you'll have that target or that bullseye rash. It's called Lyme disease. Also, I talked about Rocky Mountain spotted fever last chapter, okay? Ticks also carry that pathogen as well. So rickettsia causes Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Ticks carry them too. So they are biological vectors for those two diseases.
Ticks or mites?
Just ticks alone, ticks.
Okay.
Yeah, so ticks carry, for example, Borrelia burgdorferi causes Lyme disease, or rickettsia bacteria can cause, for example, Rocky Mountain spotted fever.
Is rickettsia at all tied into rickets?
Actually, no. Rickets is a disease that's due to vitamin deficiency.
Okay.
That's vitamin deficiency. Rickettsia is a type of bacteria. So it sounds similar, but very different. Good question. Now, a few mites can transmit rickettsial diseases as well. Now, rickettsial diseases can be typhus or Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Now, the only difference between a mite and a tick is simply the size. Literally, they look the same. Their bodies look the same. Ticks are bigger, mites are smaller. That's it. I'll show you a picture of them at the end.
Okay.
Now, with our insects have 6 pairs of jointed legs. So 3 pairs or 6 total jointed legs. And they also have 3 distinct body regions. So all insects have a head. All insects have the thorax or the chest. That will be the middle of their body. And all insects have an abdomen, the last third of their body. So all insects have 3 parts of their body and also 6 total legs. Now in the insects, we have fleas, lice, flies, mosquitoes, and kissing bugs. Let's go to our fleas, all right? Now, fleas don't have wings. Now insects, let me tell you right now, insects differ in terms of their body. The only thing all insects have in common are what? 6 legs, a head, a thorax, and abdomen. That's it. They can have wings, no wings, sucking mouth parts, biting mouth parts, etc., etc. Now, fleas, they don't have wings, but they can jump. Now, usually they're just pests. For example, if you got a dog or a cat, fleas are simply pests. However, fleas can carry diseases. They can be a biological vector. For example, if you know anything about the bubonic plague or Black Death, it occurred back in the Middle Ages, it was caused by Yersinia pestis. Now, Yersinia pestis is a bacterium. It causes the plague. Now, fleas harbor that bacteria. And the fleas were living on rats. So you see where we're going with this? So back in the Middle Ages, okay, rats were basically running rampant in the streets. Those rats carried fleas. Those fleas carried Yersinia. And if you got bit by that flea, you got Yersinia, you died. So bubonic plague took out about 1/3 of all of Europe's population, just with fleas and Yersinia. Now, lice are the only arthropod vector that can actually live in association with its host. All the other ones, they only bite you when they're eating. And then when they're done eating, they go about their business. Now, with lice, they can actually live with you forever if you don't get rid of them. Think about head lice, okay? Head lice will stay in your hair until you get rid of them. Now, some lice can carry some rickettsial diseases that causes typhus in, as Everett said earlier, developing countries. I don't like saying third world, but developing countries. Now, flies. Now, mosquitoes are a type of fly. So flies are true flies, and then mosquitoes are a type of fly because they both have wings, they both can fly. Now, flies, we mentioned earlier, they can be mechanical vectors, right? Because remember, if they land on feces and then land on your food, they're just carrying bacteria from the feces. But some flies, for example, the tsetse fly found in Africa, the tsetse fly carries trypanosoma, a type of trypanosoma. Remember, trypanosoma is a type of protozoan. Now, if the tsetse fly is carrying trypanosoma, it's going to cause African sleeping sickness. That's if the fly bites you and gives you that protozoan. Let's quickly talk about mosquitoes. Now, mosquitoes are probably the most important arthropod vector, period. Because mosquitoes have wings, right, which means they can go a long distance, and they bite you. And many mosquitoes harbor, viruses or protozoans. So mosquitoes are the most important biological arthropod vector, even more so than the ticks. Mosquitoes, for example, can carry plasmodium, which causes malaria. Mosquitoes can also carry different viruses like the yellow fever virus or the dengue fever virus or West Nile virus. And that's just a few of the diseases that malaria can carry with them. So they're very important. And lastly, kissing bugs. These are true bugs. They have wings, and I mentioned earlier, they're called kissing bugs because when they feed, they tend to kiss near your mouth and suck your blood, okay? Kissing bugs are a type of biological vector because they can also carry trypanosoma. And if they carry trypanosoma, if you're living in South America, for example, instead of getting African syphilis sickness, you get Chagas disease. So same kind of disease, different name, different biological vector. Make sense? So kissing bugs, they carry trypanosoma, causes Chagas disease. The tsetse flies, they carry trypanosoma, they cause African sleeping sickness. The last slide will just give you a visual picture of the body parts of these arthropod vectors, and it will also tell you their actual size. You can see how big they are. Now these two guys are the arachnids. Okay, they have 8 legs on them. This is the tick. That's the mite. Difference: small, big. And here are their actual sizes. So here's that tick. If you're not careful, for example, when you're walking in the woods, particularly like in the Northeast, you might miss that guy. So when you come out from walking, you have to check. I remember as a young person, I went outside one day and I came home and there was a tick on my jeans. Now luckily I had on jeans, so it was just on the jean itself, but if I had on shorts, luckily it was over the fall, if I had on shorts, it would have been on my leg. And they're hard to miss, they're really small.
B's the mice, right?
This is the mite, that's right. So B would be the mite, A is the tick. They look very similar, okay? Have a flat body, little head, and 8 legs. This guy, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. His little leg must be under him or right there, because they both have 8 legs. Now, all the rest of these guys are insects. They have 6 legs. You can see their actual sizes. Talked about fleas carrying bubonic plague. Talked about this is lice. This is the flea. Here's your lice. Now, these guys can stay with you and live forever with you if you don't get rid of them. They can carry some rickettsia bacteria and can cause typhus. This guy, a typical housefly, that usually, if it's a housefly, it's a mechanical vector. It just carries pathogens with it. But the tsetse fly is a biological vector. Carries trypanosoma. Of course, the mosquito is the most important of them all. Carries lots of different protozoan and also viral diseases. And here is that kissing bug. Carries trypanosoma, causes Chagas disease. Okay, imagine that guy laying on your mouth. He's not big, that's actual size. That guy's okay. No. That is the end of chapter 12. Do you have any questions for me? Any questions about what we covered this morning? Okay, well, thank you so much and have a good weekend.
All right.
Thank you.